And welcome to the time study tool training for the Family Infant Toddler Program cost study. PCG is conducting this cost study in partnership with the New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department. We appreciate your participation both in this training as well as in the time study and broader cost study itself. Today, I will initially briefly introduce you to our PCG team. Then I'll also provide a brief overview of the entire project before delving in more detail to the time study itself and that section entitled Time Study 101, providing more background for you all on the time study. Then we'll dive into the time study tool, sharing with you all some screenshots and details regarding how to complete the time study tool. We'll also provide a live demonstration of the Excel-based tool during that portion so that you all can see an example of us filling out the time study tool. Lastly, we'll go through some brief next steps and wrap up before also having a little bit of Q&A at the end. So the PCG project team, just briefly, my name is Greg Moore. I'm a senior consultant with Public Consulting Group. I'm responsible for leading the cost study, working closely with my colleagues that you see here. We have an accountant, Ted Lindsay, our lead analyst, Amanda Dunlap, our analyst team comprised of Margot Hoagland, Courtney Reed, and Shelby Neely, as well as an advisory team comprised of subject matter experts, including Mr. Andy Gom, my co-facilitator today, who some of you will recognize as having previously been the FIT chief in New Mexico. Also of our subject matter experts are Joe Carbo and Zane Roderick. And at the top of the screen there, you see Sarah Salisbury. She's our engagement manager, which in a nutshell just means that she's responsible for managing the contract. All right, so let's talk about the project. Our purpose in conducting this project is to implement a comprehensive cost study for the New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department's Family Infant Toddler Program. We're doing so to determine if FIT providers are reimbursed at a reasonable standard rate by the state of New Mexico, and then also to propose new rate for FIT services as appropriate. The goal of ECECD is to implement this study in a manner that promotes best practices in early intervention, supports the recruitment and retention of qualified early intervention staff, and provides an assessment of the budget impact of implementing the recommended rates. The project itself has three primary components: a time study, a cost report, and a market analysis. The time study, that's why we're all here today. We're asking all FIT practitioners to complete the time study tool, which is an Excel-based document. It's going to capture all time that they're working on early intervention services and related tasks during 10 scheduled working days during the time study period. The time study will be used to align expenses with the services delivered based on the current rate structure. Next will come after the time study, our cost report. That's where we'll facilitate a cost instrument and a personnel roster, which will be completed by FIT provider agencies. The cost instrument is going to capture revenue, personnel expenses, as well as other expenses, while the personnel roster is going to capture information about all employees and subcontractors at the agency that deliver early intervention services. This cost report will allow us to understand the true cost of FIT service delivery. Lastly, there you see market analysis. That's where we'll be conducting market research for salaries of professions within the FIT service definitions and standards. We'll use that to inform the rate calculations by looking at salaries in the market for similar EI services. Here you see an infographic that includes the project work plan and timeline. We started in April and have been busy with stakeholder engagement, working with ECECD leadership, FIT program leadership, as well as a FIT cost study advisory group, which is comprised of FIT providers, helping us to inform our methods, our approach, as well as the tools that we're using. Last month in July, we began reaching out to providers to let you all know what was to come with regard to the cost study itself, as well as the associated trainings. And here we are in August leading these trainings currently for the time study. Next, we will be leading some trainings related to the cost report. Then you see there the time study itself. So our time study period is August 14th through September 3rd. And so that's the time during which FIT practitioners are going to be capturing their time in that time study tool. Next, we'll facilitate the cost report in September. And then lastly, we'll take a few months to analyze our findings, continue to engage the advisory group as well as ECECD to flesh out our findings and develop our recommendations. All right, so let's dig into the time study itself. First, what is a time study? A time study measures the amount of time spent performing both direct service and administrative activities. For this time study, participants will record all time spent on early intervention activities during 10 consecutive scheduled working days within a 3-week period. Why are we doing a time study? It will allow us to allocate costs based on service activities and capture necessary administrative services that can be included in rate calculations. So rather than just looking at billing data, which we will do, we're actually going to be hearing from you all directly, boots on the ground, how you're spending your time and capturing those important administrative activities, which can be incorporated into our rate calculations. When? Again, 10 consecutive scheduled working days during the 21-day period between August 14th and September 3rd. Who? All practitioners who provide early intervention services, including both salaried staff and contractors, should participate in the time study. And then how? We will collect time spent on EI activities during the time study period using an Excel-based time study tool, which we're going to talk through here in just a minute. So time study champions, we've asked that each FIT provider agency identify 1 to 3 FIT champions, cost study champions to really help us throughout this process, be our points of contact with their agency to work with you all as practitioners. You'll see there, number 1, distribution and submission. One Excel template will be sent via email to all FIT practitioners by their agency champions.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to interrupt for just a second. We're getting some pixelation and freezing from the interpreter. So maybe let's go ahead and switch interpreters just to see if that works better. And Courtney or Whitney, you can go ahead and turn your camera off.
Thanks, Leah, and let me know. Sure. I'm in the presentation mode, so let me know if the video gets clearer.
We sure will. Looks like Whitney's frozen, but I think Daniel is ready to interpret. So go ahead, Daniel.
Excellent. Thanks, Whitney and Daniel, as well as thanks, Leah, for letting us know. So you'll get the tool from your agency champions. We at PCG will send that tool to them. And then when it comes time to return those completed tools to PCG,
stopping us again. Daniel, if you could adjust your camera down a little bit, we're losing the second half of your hands. Greg, is there a way to pin just Daniel?
I'm sorry, while we're stopped, am I frozen on screen? Because I had turned my camera off.
You were frozen and now it's off. So I think you're good now. Just go ahead and turn it back off.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to pin just Daniel so that we're not seeing everybody. That might make him more visible, like his hands.
How are you seeing me now? Because what I'm seeing on my screen on my end is the top part of my head is cut off. So
that's now what we're seeing.
Yep.
Okay.
So Daniel, I think it may be that by spotlighting 2 people at the same time, it may, I don't know, somehow adjust the camera angle.
It definitely does. With my experience in Microsoft Teams, when you spotlight or pin someone, you get cutoffs.
Okay.
So how is that?
That's better. But your name is covering up your hands. So you're just gonna need to like raise up your hands maybe, or
okay. Let's see if I can downward a little bit more. How's that?
I think that's better.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
okay. All right, let me turn my mic off.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, team. And thanks to you all as our participants. We all know that in the line of our work, we're constantly dealing with changing circumstances, and that's true today. So we appreciate your patience as we work through this. Quality assurance is an important component of this process. And so we're asking that both you all as practitioners who are completing the time study tools, as well as your champions, to complete QA. You as participants, you're going to check your tool for accuracy before submitting to your champion. Essentially, you're going to make sure that there's no missing fields or errors and that you've entered your time into the appropriate tabs. Then once you submit it to your champions, they're in turn going to look at it to also check for accuracy before submitting it to us at PCG. And then we'll be tracking submissions at PCG and doing any follow-up that's necessary, both with provider agencies and champions, all the way down to you all as individual practitioners as needed to get clarification. So first, just know that you are not alone. All fit practitioners are going to be filling out the time study tool. And to help you all in doing so, we are providing a number of resources. First, we have these live training sessions that we've been conducting this week. Next, we'll be holding live office hour sessions throughout the time study period. So each Tuesday and Thursday, beginning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, we'll be hosting live office hours during which champions and practitioners can join and talk to us in real time about the questions that you have as you're completing the time study tool. Additional resources include a recording of the training. We'll have a couple of recordings posted on the website for folks to be able to view as they need to, both if they couldn't attend a training, then also if you just want to go back and review it as a refresher. Your champions are most absolutely a resource. Then we've also published a fit cost study website for which you see the web address there. It will house all of our resources as well as important information. We're also going to maintain a list of frequently asked questions. So this will be a running list of questions that we get from you all so that everybody can have the benefit of seeing the answers. We'll keep those posted on the website, but then we'll also send those to the champions, the updated version each week for them to be able to share and use as their assisting practitioners. We'll have a time study printout. So this is a PDF that's going to be available to you all to be able to print. It will allow you to help you in taking notes and documenting your time throughout the day to make it easier on you whenever you go to enter that into the electronic tool. Then we also have a dedicated email address, which you see there, which folks can send us questions and we'll get back to people quickly to answer those questions. And then, of course, feel free to use each other, your colleagues, as supports as well. All right, so the time study tool itself, let's dig into that. I'm going to talk to you all about the cover page. The time study tool is divided up into several different worksheets within the Excel workbook. The first of those is entitled Cover. It's a cover page. That's where you're going to enter some background basic information, some of which will populate to the other tabs, but it's going to tell us all about you and your program. And so what you see here is the top portion of that cover page. You'll note those bullets at the top of the page. If you work for multiple agencies, we ask that you please keep a version of the time study tool for each agency. Also, if you don't work 10 days in the 3-week period, please fill out the time study tool for the days that you do work during that time. So there within that screenshot, you'll see at the top, we have contact and support information, including the email address. You'll see the time study period there. Next are some boxes with the individual dates comprising that 3-week time study period. We're asking that folks go in and place an X next to each date for which they're going to record their time. After the cover page, then we have individual worksheets for each of those dates that folks will go to enter their actual time for those days, which we'll get into in just a minute. There at the bottom of the screenshot, you see provider and program information. That's where we're looking for the information about your agency, as well as the contact information for your champion. Next here, this is like the middle section, probably the middle 1/3 of the cover page that you're seeing here in a screenshot. The bullets there at the top, I'll direct y'all to those. If you work for multiple agencies and are completing multiple time study tools, please make sure you use the same participant name on each, which will help us in tracking and aligning all of your entries. Then also, if you work in multiple counties for an agency, please check each county that applies. So participant information, there are things that you would probably expect, just such as your name. Then we're asking you your staff type, the county in which you're based, your title, whether or not you provide service coordination, which is a yes or no question. And then we're asking about your primary role category. And we'll dig into that in a little bit too. As well as some of your contact information, your work phone, your work email. Then you'll see there another area where there are all of the counties listed from New Mexico. We're asking that you go in and put an X next to all of the counties in which you work. The bottom of that page there are participant credentials. That's where we're looking for your years of experience, your education level, as well as any licensures and certifications you hold. And then this slide here contains the bottom third of the cover page. Again, I'll direct you to the bullets at the top of the page. We're asking that you indicate your working relationship with the agency and record how many billable hours in a typical week you work for the agency. And then that's where you see there that employment type and schedule. And then there at the bottom of the page, once you have finished entering your activities, and that means all of your activities. So once you've completed your 10 days or however many days you're recording based on the guidance, then we're asking that after you check that for accuracy, make sure there's no errors, then you're going to come in and sign it electronically. And to do so, you'll simply just type your name on that line and then type the date on the date signed line before submitting it to your champion. And then ultimately, your champion or supervisor, whoever does that next level review, will sign their name as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Andy so that he can talk to you all about the daily tabs, which are really a critical piece in this process because that's where you're actually going to be documenting your time. Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. And as Greg said, I was the prior family infant toddler fit director in New Mexico before joining PCG. So good to see some folks here that I used to work with as colleagues. So we're going to spend a few minutes keep going through the data collection on the spreadsheet, and then we'll switch to the Excel sheet to demonstrate that. This page is just showing the fields that carry over to avoid duplicate data entry from the cover sheet. And again, we'll demonstrate this in a few minutes. So next slide, Greg. So one of the changes, if you were part of the cost study 5 years ago when PCG conducted that, the feedback we got is that because people work such different hours, early in the morning to into the evening, weekends, that the time collection tool needs to reflect that. And so one of the differences is now, rather than breaking up the day into 15-minute units, we are having folks enter the actual time they started the activity, both by hour and minute, whether that's morning or afternoon. And then the gray sections here will calculate the time for that activity, and we'll talk about the activities in a minute. So if you only work part-time, we are only expecting you to, maybe you only work from 1 o'clock till 6, or your days are different every day. We are only asking that you enter time for the time that you're spending doing fit-related work. So similarly, if you're working with other clients as other parts of your work outside of the FIT program, we don't need you to be entering that. Similarly, if you take a break during the day, as long as it's unpaid time, for example, maybe you have a couple of families that you're going to be seeing in the evening, and so you take some time off to do personal business in the afternoon, maybe between 1 and 3, so that then you come back and you're working into the evening 5 to 7. Again, we don't need you to be entering time for 1 to 3, justifying your time. You're just off at that time, as long as it's unpaid time off. The thing I want to, before we go to the next page, is that the spreadsheet is set up, again, we'll demonstrate it in a minute. The first thing you need to think about is the activity I'm going to be writing on this row, on this line, related to a direct service of a billable time with children and families, or consulting and therefore billable, or is it an indirect activity? So that could be prep time, travel time, data entry, writing up a report, or even things like staff meetings, supervision, and those and training and those kind of things. So we'll go into each of those. When you select either direct service or indirect, it will then gray out the activities corresponding to the other line. So let's demonstrate that, or show you how that works. So next slide, Greg. So first, we're going to look at direct services. So in this screenshot, the person would have selected direct service. And if that's the case, then indirect services get grayed out. So you see that over there in the orange or yellow, that line is grayed out. So so I think that's the next slide, please, Greg, and we'll show you how to enter the services. Now, these should be familiar with those of you working in the FIT program. The list of services are those that are approved to be provided both under the FIT program and IDEA Part C. So there shouldn't be any surprises there for the service that you're selecting. Similarly, the location and the method are those that you're probably already collecting on your progress notes or documentation form for your agency. If any of these don't make sense to you, and maybe your form collects them in a slightly different way, these are how they're collected in FIT Kids, the FIT programs database. So inclusive provider location is if the service is provided in a childcare or early Head Start setting, whereas a developmental disabilities provider is a program or setting provided for children with disabilities. The one thing just to point out is a recent change in the FIT program is telehealth is now listed as a location rather than a method. So if you're providing your service through a telehealth session, you'd be listing that as a location, and then usually that would be an individual method. So that is one slight change that the FIT program has made, and so we've adjusted these forms to reflect that data collection. The county is the county, not where you're providing the service, but where the family is receiving it. So if you've traveled, maybe you've traveled across a couple of counties to see a family, you'd be listing the county where the family resides. And similarly for other services that you're providing. And then bilingual would be if you are employed because of your bilingual skills, and that would include ASL, be listing that as you'd be providing it. If not, then no. Simple yes, no response. So hopefully those are all making sense. If you have questions about the location or method, I would suggest you go back to your supervisor to get information. The service definitions and standards from the FIT program have far more information than I've provided today. So next slide, please, Greg. So we're going to move on to the indirect, non-billable services. So again, you've selected that in the first section, which now it's an indirect service. The most common or obvious indirect services is you're traveling to see the family or where the child is being served in an early Head Start or childcare. So
Can I ask us to pause for just a second? when we switched interpreters, it looks like on my end, Whitney is a little pixelated. I'm going to ask Daniel, is her signing understandable, intelligible?
It looks clear to me.
Okay, it's probably just on my end. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not having any
So
vision.
I think we're ready.
or everything seems fine on my end as well.
And likewise for me. So I think we'll keep going. So actually just one, a good pause here to just say, why are we collecting all of these indirect services? And it really comes to the crux of the time study portion of the overall cost study. And that is, we know that folks are providing direct services to children and families and some of the other billable services in terms of consultation. But what's
Sorry,
not
if I could
collected is
interrupt,
kids.
Andy. I'm sorry, Andy.
Yep.
Whitney is pixelating and freezing now, so I can take over if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm having the same experience.
Yeah.
Should
So
I
maybe
No
try?
problem.
Should I try logging out and logging back in?
You could. We had this issue yesterday with ASL interpretation, and logging back in did not seem to resolve it. I don't know what the cause is. One thing we could all try to do is everybody except the interpreter should turn off their cameras.
Do you want to turn yours off, Whitney? I'll just
Okay.
pick it up. I'll pick it up.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on.
It's
Okay.
okay.
I don't ever have this issue.
It's technology.
Yep.
That'd be a team thing. So I'm going to start this slide again, and just to reiterate that the reason why we're collecting all of these indirect time that goes into providing an early intervention session is that really comes to the crux of how we're going to do the methodology to come up with new rates, is that we know that travel, preparation, report writing, documentation, as well as the other more administrative time of training and supervision and staff meetings contribute to the overall cost of providing fit early intervention services. So this is where you'll be collecting all of those. We worked with both the ECECD Family Infant Toddler program team, as well as FIT program providers in an advisory capacity, to come up with a pretty exhaustive list. You'll see that we have other admin activity. So if you can't see the non-billable indirect time category that you're doing something here, we ask that you just use the other admin activity. And so let's drill into a few of these categories. So next slide, please, Greg. So here we're just highlighting a few of them. You saw that we probably have over 20 different categories. So we hope that all of your time will be you can account for it. So email and text with families is separated from email, telephone, and text with staff, between staff, separate from consultation time. Similarly, no-shows and missed sessions is separated between client reasons, family reasons. If they had to cancel or it's a no-show as you show up, is separated out from staff time. Now, one thing to point out here, this is, you would be not using this if you're able to fill that time with other activities. Maybe it was a telehealth and you're now able to do report writing up an evaluation or something. So this is only to record when you're not able to fill that time with working on some other activity or seeing another family. As I pointed out, there's the other admin activity. So if you can't find something listed, you can always use the other admin activity category. And then just to point out, it just says supervisory related activities. That would apply both to the supervisor and the supervisee. So that would be any kind of supervision, reflective supervision, or just more administrative supervision. And then we also know that completing this time study takes some time. So if you need, or we are expecting that most people would be then using the time study category to indicate the time of their day that they spent completing the time study. So next slide, please, Greg. So just a couple of things on the Excel form, and then we'll actually demo it. We are allowing folks, if you are a Google Sheets user or an Apple Numbers user and you don't use Excel, or your agency doesn't use Excel, you can convert to both Google Sheets and Apple Numbers. We are, though, requiring that when you submit it, or when your time study champion submits it to us, that they do a save as and convert it back to Excel for that submission. We do have a pretty good description of how to do all of that, both for Apple Numbers and Google Sheets, in the FAQs, including some screenshots. So we're providing that. And then we are asking folks, I forgot to show it, but there is a place to put notes. If you are listing something and you think that we need to know why you use that category, you can use the notes function. We're not expecting a lot of notes, and don't feel like you need to be justifying or writing a lot of notes. If you, however, do use notes, we are asking that you don't use any personally identifiable information about the child or the family. So with that, Greg, I think we're going to switch to do a quick demo of the Excel. So if you wouldn't mind bringing up the Excel form. And so what Greg is going to demonstrate, first of all, is entering just probably his name, maybe an agency, on the cover sheet, as we explained, that will then enter into each of the day data entry forms. So Greg's going to go and do that, and he's going to select just any day. You'll see that the tabs along the bottom correspond to the days of the time study. That's actually a little change from how we did this a few years ago. If you happen to enter data on the wrong day, that's not a big deal. Don't feel like you have to go and re-enter it, but try to, as much as possible, correspond to the days the dates that you're actually working. So Greg's going to demonstrate here. He's starting his day at 10 o'clock in the morning. Guess he got to lie in a little bit this morning. I bet he wishes that were true. And he's going to spend half an hour getting to his first family. So he's going to enter the time he starts this activity and the time he ends. You'll see that it's self-calculating. This is now travel, so it's going to be indirect or other admin. And you'll see, as I said before, it grays out, actually blacks out the direct services, which means he can't enter any data there. And this is a fairly simple one. He's going to go down to select travel. I know sometimes you're going to be looking through what category is this, and as the week goes on or the 2 weeks go on, you'll get pretty familiar with those categories. So he arrived at the family's home at 10:30, so that begins the direct service now. Greg is going to enter that this is a direct service, and you'll see that all of the fields have lists to choose from. That can be frustrating sometimes, but it certainly helps with the data entry consistency and validity of the data. So Greg's gonna be a family therapist for the day, and he's providing services at home with an individual family. You can select any county, Greg, so Cibola County in Western New Mexico. And for this purpose, he was not a bilingual therapist or family therapist. A couple of other things just to point out. We've been asked why, if all of my services are in Cibola County, why can't it populate? Because there are so many folks that work in multiple counties, but you can copy and paste. So Greg's just going to copy and paste that. So if you do provide services in that county, you can do that. And if your only service is one service, you can do that. We do ask that people don't drag the value down by using the bottom right-hand corner. We think we've prevented that from happening, but just if you could just copy and paste, that would be the better way to do that. The other thing just to point out is a couple, maybe over on location, Greg, to point out, it will sometimes look like you can't enter the whole field or the field next to it. So if you select county and inclusive provider location, you'll see that it looks like that means that it's gone over and spilled into the next cell, and you can't enter then in the next cell. But actually, when Greg clicks in that, it still allows him to select the county. And then at that point, when you selected information in the next cell, it will then contract in this case, the long number of characters for developmental disabilities provider in, and it limits it and puts that back into that cell. So just when you're doing that, it will maybe look weird at first, but you'll get used to the fact that it does allow you to select in the next cell. So I know we went through that rather fast, but hopefully that demonstrates how the data entry is. Greg did share that one tip is to maybe print out the data collection form if you don't have a laptop or don't want to be using a laptop or a tablet in the car with you, that you can print it out. So, okay, I was driving for half an hour, my session was 50 minutes. I have that information when I'm then doing that data entry at the end of the day. So Greg, I'll hand over to you. I think you have a few wrap-up slides to go over. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Andy. And I'm going to pull back up the PowerPoint, which is not appearing. I apologize. Bear with me 1 second.
I'm going to try to switch off again.
And I apologize, everyone. We got the PowerPoint up now. I'm going to make sure to go ahead and spotlight Whitney in hopes that folks can see her signing better. All right, so we have talked through the tool and done a demonstration of that. I'll briefly go through some of these next slides. The slides will be available to you as well as some instructional documents, all sorts of important information. So I won't read all these slides to you, but just some information here about finalizing and submitting your tools. You're going to complete your entries, ensure that all of the fields on the cover page and each daily tab are completed. Once you have QA'd that document, you're going to sign the attestation field, then you're going to send it to your champion or your supervisor, however your agency is handling that, and that individual will compile all of the tools and send them to PCG together through a secure process. Here you'll see some tips and tricks for the process. Again, I won't read all these to you, but just if you can't update the time study as you work, then we recommend that you record all of your time in the afternoon at the end of the day or at the beginning of the next day while things are still fresh. Make sure that you're tracking your tasks and meetings, keeping a list, using notes, including that time study printout, which we've discussed, which you can print. Don't forget about the copy and paste functions that Andy mentioned and which I demonstrated that can help you if you're doing a lot of the same activities. Feel free to copy and paste. The protection within the worksheets will allow you to do that. And the last one there, timing, it'll take a day or two likely for you to get adjusted to capturing your time like this. But after that, we recognize that it shouldn't take more than approximately half an hour to document your activities each day. All right, so some of our key takeaways, all practitioners should participate. That's employees as well as contractors. Please only record your time spent either directly providing or in support of early intervention services. Questions, we understand that folks are going to have questions. We've got your back. We want to support you. So when you have questions, refer to that frequently asked questions document that's going to be available through your champion and on the website. Talk to your champion, and then also feel free to email us directly if you have those questions that y'all can't find an answer to. And then likewise, please join our office hour sessions as needed to talk to us in real time about your questions. And then next steps, just after this, we're going to be sending the Excel files to the champion. We're also going to be providing a link to the website, which will include all of the resources. Going forward, we'll send a list of frequently asked questions today, but then we'll send an updated list each week, and it'll be dated so folks will know they have the most current version. And then we'll also start facilitating those office hours beginning next week. And just to note, they're on Tuesday and Thursday, as I mentioned, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Next week, we are holding a special office hours session on Monday. We've sent out information about that, and more information will be coming via email today. And so that brings us to our timeline. Just as a reminder here, you see the time study period there at the top, the calendar that we've created. It lists our training dates, and then what you see highlighted in orange, that is actually the time study period. So the time study begins on Sunday, and then it ends on Saturday, September 3rd. And again, you see the office hours listed there throughout on those Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's the end of our formal presentation. Now, we are going to entertain some questions. So I will open that up for questions now.
Well, we do have some questions. Thank you so much, Greg. I am going to, this is Leah, the Family Infant Toddler Program Coordinator. I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple of the questions that have been asked at previous trainings. The first question that I wanted to ask is, sorry, you already addressed that one. Let me move on to another one. What if I take time off, like a day or a week during the time study?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Leah. Thanks for asking. So let's say that that middle week of the time study period, you're going to be on vacation. First of all, congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful vacation. But if that's the case, if you're going to be off for a week during that time study period, then essentially your 10 days have been chosen for you. So what we would ask is that in my example, where you take off that middle week of the 3-week time study period, we would ask that you record your time beginning next week during that first week of the time study period. Then you'll obviously be off for your vacation. Go, relax, have a great time. Don't think anything about the time study. Then when you come back that last week of the time study period, the last week in August, we would ask that you then record your time for that. That would still give you the 10 days. If for some reason you're going to be off work, you're on vacation, it's longer than a week, then first of all, congratulations again. We want you to enjoy yourself. But then if you're off for more than a week, then we would just ask that you complete and document your time for whatever days you are working during the time study period.
Thank you. I also want to ask, I often do work, report writing, enter documentation on my days off. Should I record it on my day off? Or sorry, should I record it on my off day? I also offer makeup sessions on my days off. So do I record those too?
Thanks. Another great question, Leah. And this one is where the answer depends, and we're not going to leave you hanging like that. But essentially, this is where it's going to be important that you follow your agency's normal rules, guidelines for documenting those types of things. So if your agency allows you to record your time on your non-scheduled work day, say a weekend, for example, in the example that you gave, then we allow you to record that in the time study. However, if your agency doesn't allow you to do so, then please don't do so. This is just where it's important that, again, you follow your agency policies and rules. If you have questions about that, ask your supervisor. But with the time study tool is capable of, and we welcome you capturing that information, but only if your agency allows it.
Thank you, Greg. I want to stop us for a second. Whitney is becoming pixelated again. I'm going to ask that Daniel pick back up.
I'm back here. Can you see me
Thank
okay?
you. Yes.
Okay.
It's okay, Whitney. It is not your fault. It is the technology is being mean to all of us. So don't feel bad.
Don't sweat it, Whitney. We went through this a bunch yesterday. So
Thank you for being such a great team. Thank you.
I do have another question I wanted to ask. Can I print the tool? I do a lot of my work from the car when I'm going between visits, and it will be hard for me to get back to a computer when I do so much of my work on the road.
Sure. So you can absolutely print the tool. The Excel document, the time study tool itself, it is formatted to allow it to be able to print. It's going to print best on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's been formatted to be able to do so. So, for example, you could go into one of the blank date tabs. Let's say it's Monday, August 15th, and you want to print that day so that as you're going about your daily activities, you can record it. You can absolutely do that. What I would recommend, though, just personally, what I think may be easier for you is that we have the time study printout. It's actually a PDF that's available on the website. What it is it's it provides you a single sheet that you can print that's been formatted slightly differently than the time study tool itself. It gives you the ability to circle, for example, direct or indirect activity while you're recording your time, but then it lists the actual columns for our direct activities as well as our indirect and administrative activities. And so that would be a wise way to be able to record your time. Another great thing about that resource is that it also includes pages that lists the values for the various components or cells in the form that you're filling out. So for example, if you're wondering what is the list of all of those different administrative activities that Andy showed you, it's actually listed there in that printable document, so you can flip over, refer to that, so you'll know kind of how to code your time as you're going through and documenting it. Lastly, I'll just say that I think it's great to take notes in that fashion. It helps you, it makes it easier for you than trying to remember everything. It will still be very important, though, that then you go in and plug in that information that you've handwritten, the notes that you've taken, into the Excel version of the tool, because we'll obviously have to have the electronic copy to be able to capture your time.
Thank you. What if I am a temporary employee, or if I only see one child? Should I still participate in the time study?
Absolutely. So we recognize that across the board in early intervention, and including for FIT in New Mexico, that there are myriad different schedules and positions. And so we want to capture all of that. So if you are providing direct early intervention services, then we want you to complete the time study tool. Now, if, say, for example, you're a part-time employee and you only work 1 or 2 days a week, then you're only going to capture that time. Or if you are a contractor and you currently only have one client, then you're only going to document the times that you spend with that client, or and in support of that client. But we absolutely want folks to participate in the time study, because everyone's roles are important and they will all help to inform our analysis and findings.
Another question, what if I have jury duty during the whole time?
So if you have jury duty during the whole time, first, I hope it's an interesting trial and bless you. Thank you for your civic duty. But if you had jury duty during the entire 21-day time study period, then you would not complete a time study tool. Similarly, if you were off for other reasons, if, say you're on vacation or on sabbatical for that full 3 weeks, then you would not complete a time study tool.
Thank you. I know that, so I work for 2 different agencies, and I know that I need to reflect that in my participation in the time study. But right now, I don't actually have any children with one of the agencies. Do I submit a blank form indicating that I do not serve kids from that other agency?
Great question. We appreciate you being so thorough. For your sake, no, absolutely, you do not need to submit a blank time study form. In that situation, if you're working for a couple of agencies and you don't have any currently have any clients with one of those agencies, then you'll only complete and submit the time study tool for the agency for which you do have clients and for which you are currently providing early intervention services.
Thank you. Last question, how long will it take me to record my time?
So that can vary by user and by participant. Just to be candid about that, some folks are more or less comfortable with Excel, and so I think coming into it for all of us, it will take a little bit longer in those first couple of days as everyone is getting used to the process and getting used to the spreadsheet. But after that, it should take approximately 15 minutes to half an hour each day, or to document your time for each day. And so one of the things that I would recommend is that if you find that it's taking you significantly more time than that, then maybe revisit and see if perhaps you are trying to provide too much detail. We've tried to make the time study tool as user-friendly as possible, and in doing so included a number of drop-down lists so that you're not having to free write answers into it. So it's really going through in many instances and just picking the appropriate value from the list. And so again, it will vary by individual participant, but our experiences in conducting time studies in jurisdictions across the country is that it typically doesn't take more than 30 minutes to document a day's activities.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I don't see any other questions. And so with that, I will again thank you all for your participation today, for watching this recording if you're doing so at home or at the office, and then also more broadly for participating in the time study. This is a very important process. The information that we capture from you will be vital in helping us to come up with comprehensive, sound results and analysis to be able to provide ECECD with some worthwhile recommendations. So we know it takes your time. We know how busy you all are. So again, a sincere thank you from me and from us. And with that, we bid you good day, and we look forward to talking with everyone soon during office hours. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.